How's it going, everyone? We are here for another episode of HorrorBuzz Live. I appear to be in slow motion. I hope I look good on your end. Let's see here. And this week we are doing a bit of a different show. We are going to have what I'm calling the Great Maze Debate. Rick West and I will be going over the history of Knott's Scary Farm mazes and which ones we thought were spectacular and which ones we thought were pretty awful. We're approaching this with all due respect, of course. Creative misfires are fun to reflect on, huh? So let's first off, what I did want to mention was that if you love this, please like and subscribe on YouTube, and that will alerts. And if you like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and all of those fun social platforms. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring on the man of the hour here, Mr. Rick West.
Hi everybody,
Oh
how are you,
no,
Norm?
did he? Are we having tech issues here?
I don't know. I look okay. Well, as okay as I'm gonna look, but you are in slow motion. But what we have found with StreamYard, because Midsummer Scream uses it also for broadcast, even if it looks choppy when we're doing the live broadcast, it looks a lot better usually on the user end.
Okay, well,
So, but then it could look like crap. I don't know.
I
I
mean, who
don't
the hell
know.
knows at this point?
Yeah.
You guys, everybody, tonight's format, Rick and I are going to go over what we felt were the five worst and the five best mazes in Not Scary Farm history. We're going to cover our least favorite four, and then our best favorite four, and then we're going to save the best and worst for very last. Okay? So, let's kind of, you know what we should do? Let's talk about the news first, Rick.
Go ahead.
You mentioned there was a car chase.
Yeah, first of all, we're missing the end of a really gnarly car chase here in Los Angeles. And so, anybody viewing us and tuning in here, man, kudos to you. Because if it were up to me, I wouldn't watch me. I'd be watching the car chase. That's one of my sick obsessions. I do watch car chases when they're on. So, but anyway, that's
A
good on
ringing
you guys for
endorsement.
tuning in. Thank you.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this will be up all week. But go ahead and if you have any opinions on said mazes, please comment in the comments. We can actually see this. So well, first off, the big news today was that Delusion is coming back at the end of the year, and coming back with 13th Floor.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I heard it was really funny because I haven't talked to John Braver in a while, and just somebody randomly last week texted me and said, "Oh, it's so great the Delusion's coming back," and I was like, that's great." I had no idea, so I didn't know whether they
Yeah,
were looking at like, old news or something. And then,
yeah.
yeah, the release came out that they had teamed up with 13th Floor, which is fantastic. Both companies are awesome, obviously, and I think that Halloween season just got a huge boost, and I think that everybody's very excited about it.
Speaking about boosts, get your vaccine and save Halloween, okay?
That's
So,
it right there.
yeah. So we
I'm all
need to be.
vaccinated up. I got mine. I got the J&J. I'm one and done.
So yeah. So there you go. I mean, vaxxed as well, and here we are. So let's get into the fog. So I can't wait to see what they cook up. It's going to be a pretty interesting, haunt season. It may not be full force, but I hear Orlando, Universal Orlando, is moving ahead, and we'll get some announcements soon. I'm hoping. There's that.
I think everybody's moving forward at full steam. And I really, people ask me all the time because I don't know, I guess I know something about Halloween. But, people ask, and I've been saying I really do think that we're going to have a relatively normal Halloween season. Of course, I just jinxed the entire thing now. But I do think that we are going to have a pretty normal Halloween season if we keep on the current trajectory that we're on.
I hope so. And everybody just be cool. We're not out of the woods yet, but we can be soon.
Yep.
So, okay, enough of the PSA and enough of the news. We are here to have a debate, Rick.
A debate?
Yes, we are. And
I bet we're going to agree on a lot. So I think that's going to be
we may not.
Maybe.
And I would also invite everybody in the comments, please chime in. If you have a total disagreement with us, we'd love to chat with you about it. So let's start with our fifth worst maze in history, in Knott's Scary Farm history. And hey, Frank, and that for me, okay, that for me would be Virus Z featuring Carrie.
Understandable. And before you go forward, I will just say that I think that you and I are going to be on the same page, because I have something that reflects that kind of thing, where you take an original maze, which is actually really good, and then you drop an IP into it, and it just completely changes and like ruins the mojo. So
we forgot.
I think we're on the same page.
Salud.
What are you having?
I'm having a nice bourbon.
Nice.
Forgive me. Tonight's show is a 21 and over. I'm so sorry.
I'm having very, very nice. I'm gonna take a sip, and then I'm gonna share with you, because it's an ooh-ah. So here it is.
Oh, very nice.
The caramel turtle, and I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. It tastes just like melting caramel turtle in your face. So that is, it's pretty rad. And you sip it, and it's basically a dessert, is what it is. So
I mean, and where else better
that's fantastic.
Than in your face?
And if anybody is wondering, I found the bottle. It's at Bevmo. Bevmo carries it.
Perfect.
There you go.
So again, I announced my fifth least favorite maze of all time.
Virus Z will carry, right?
Virus Z. Now, let's be clear. Virus Z was originally a pretty fun maze. I found it to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
With a nice little dark ending.
Yep.
Then they decided to put Carrie in the climactic prom scene.
Yep.
Which made absolutely no sense whatsoever, and nobody even caught it. This was a waste of money on Sony's part.
I think the thinking was, so at the end of Virus Z, you ended up, the climax of that maze was you ended up in the school gymnasium.
Right. Like the whole idea was get to the gym and you'll be safe.
You'll be safe, right? And then you get to the gym and everything's ridiculous.
Right.
So I think the common thread there would be that Carrie also, the big prom thing, takes place in the gym or wherever, in the movie.
Right, and they were trying to make it a clever twist of, it was Carrie's fault all along.
Yeah.
And that actually only ran 1 year. That iteration of that maze ran in 2012 to promote the remake with Julianne Moore. Bless her heart. So tell me what your fifth least favorite maze was.
Sure. And maybe for folks that don't know, long before Midsummer Scream, actually, in 1994, I created Theme Park Adventure. And so, I mean, my history with Knott's, because people are like, who's this old dude talking about Knott's? So my history with Knott's starts in the very early 80s, when I went as a young boy with a church group and was introduced to Knott's Scary Farm. Don't ever say you don't learn. You do learn good things in church. I learned about Knott's Scary Farm at church. So went with a church group in the very early 80s. I was like 11 and fell in love with it, obviously. And then in 1994, when I launched Theme Park Adventure, I had a very close relationship with Knott's. And then I would go on several years later to really kind of pioneer the maze flow-throughs. And for over 2 decades, for 24 years, TPA existed, and we were like the source to go to for haunt flow-through mazes. We were like the only ones allowed to do it, frankly. And it was a big deal, a huge concerted effort with TPA and Knott's. And so there's lots and lots of videos online. If you go to the YouTube, TPA's YouTube channel is still there. You can find a lot of these mazes that we're talking about.
Yeah.
there
In fact,
for reference.
I'll put the links up
Yeah.
later.
So that's great. So,
I should have planned on that.
Anyway, so first of all, as I started doing this list, I'm like, well, first of all, Norm is touched in the head because there's like no way that I can narrow down like 24 plus years of scary farm
Listen,
mazes.
I mean, and before we get to yours, let
Yeah.
me best you just a little.
Yeah.
Because my first visit to Not Scary Farm was in '79 when I was
Okay.
6.
Okay.
And my crazy aunts and cousins took me, and I was at once terrified and enthralled.
Mm-hmm.
So this was, I saw back in the day where people were just walking around with Planet of the Apes masks on.
Yeah,
or
dude.
zany zappers. You remember those eyeglasses with the lights on them?
Yeah. Love it.
There were
Absolutely.
monsters running around like that. And I remember riding Tijuana Taxi,
Awesome.
haunted. So
Did it had little props?
oh yes, it did. And there was an actor in the tunnel that scared the living piss out of me.
Did they name it? Do you know, was there a name for the attraction?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember that. I just remember being like, wow, that was terrifying and amazing. So
Nice.
it was great. So that's my history with haunt. But
Absolutely.
your pick of one of the worst mazes.
Okay, and yeah, these are, except for like the first one or two in each category, I mean the last one or two, they're like in kind of no particular order, and God knows they're certainly not alone on either side of the fence here.
I'm a weird Virgo, so yes, mine are in order.
Okay,
Sorry.
Mine, I was just like, how do you know? But anyway, so for my number 5, it would be Toon Territory in 1996. And the reason being, kids are like, people watching going, I wasn't even born. So in 96, they introduced Toon Territory, and it was the first time that I realized I don't really like funny mazes. And
come on.
So you step through this portal, and suddenly you're in this zany, wacky, like, cartoon world. And it was just kind of like the Not Scary version of the Not Scary Farm version of like Toontown, like Roger Rabbit. And it just, the maze was fine. The art direction on the maze was fine. The talent was always really good. It just didn't do it for me because I'm just not a fan of funny or humorous, like that mazes. So there you go.
See, I'm a fan of whatever's effective. And if I'm laughing while I'm screaming, sure, that's cool too. But the comedy should never come above the scares. It's a delicate balance. But anyway. Okay, so my next one.
Yes.
Yeah. Background of Elvira's last show. So I'm sitting in the Ghoul Time Theater right now. So my next worst is The Body from 1991.
Yep.
Now I'm going to come right out and say this was a very high concept, creatively ambitious maze. It was that guests were touring a body that was on the autopsy table. Okay, and they were inside, and you were being attacked by antibodies. The body was trying to get you out of it. This is a really cool idea, but when there's a lull in the talent, and when nobody really understands where the body is, and there's just these weird freaks walking around in black light, you're like, what? So it was a very high concept that just ultimately fell flat for me.
It was either very high concept or somebody was smoking weed when they were designing. So
or both.
Or it could be both. That's right.
Or both. And
I would say the only winner of that maze would be, I could only venture to guess where the exit was. Just saying. Don't blast your bourbon through your nose. It'll kill the soft tissue. Don't do it.
Okay. What's your next bad maze?
So we're going to go to 2007, and this was one of the very first movie tie-ins that Knott's done. Knott's doesn't usually do this. And when they do it, it's typically not been great. And this was a case of, it was interesting because the maze itself was pretty, but it preceded the movie coming out. So number one, then this is my problem all the time with Universal. If you do a maze based on a movie that no one's seen, no one knows what the hell they're looking at or what any of the characters are. So that's a non-starter for me to begin with. But we're talking about Beowulf Labyrinth into Darkness. So number one, not a horror film, but certainly a pretty environment-making type thing. But people were going through going, I don't understand. And then the ending had a really cool dragon's head, but the dragon's head worked so well that it fogged out the little area that it was in, and like hardly anyone ever got to see that it was actually a dragon making the fog and the smoke. So Beowulf.
Oh, bless that Beowulf maze, you know?
Yeah.
It was beautiful, but I mean, what just happened? Okay, so my choice for number 3, worst maze, Gus, I love you.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Is Dead of Winter.
It just got very cold in here.
It was a great idea, but the scares kind of fell flat. You know, there were some lovely set pieces, the snow, the person frozen under the ice, but well, then the Ice Queen at the end just kind of, well, there you go. And here's the thing. When we're talking about these, I'm not saying, why did you even think of this? This is more of reflecting on a sort of creative misfire. Because, you know, even Plan 9 from Outer Space has a great idea behind it, you know.
Right.
It's just something didn't work. So, you know, when we're listing these misfires, I just want to say it's with all due respect to the creative process and the people behind it. It just something didn't work.
Yeah.
But for me, Dead of Winter just didn't work. It just didn't.
I think probably one of the big missteps was that the story behind it, the backstory, was probably too ambitious as far as getting that to come across in a maze, right? You especially with mazes at places like Knott's or Universal or wherever, you don't have a whole lot of time usually in the queue or whatever to present the backstory. And if you do, most of the people aren't paying attention yet. And then when you get into the maze, it's already too late to back up and try to set it all up. So I always, you know, I do design in the real world. I do design, and I've occasionally designed haunted attractions for theme parks. And I always stress to the teams, keep it simple, stupid. You know, it's like monster movies. If anybody has seen yet the masterpiece that is Godzilla versus Kong, gotta take a drink.
Okay. I'm down.
I'm gonna wash that taste out of my mouth. All we want is a monster movie where two really cool monsters kick each other's ass and destroy cities in doing that. And that's all we want as monster movie fans. And then there's all this other noise and clever theming and story elements that are thrown in on top of this that just completely dilute it and just make it like crazy pants, like unbearable. So I think
I haven't seen it yet, so I can't.
Dude, well, boy, are you missing out. I think that it's just like, you know, if you're making a maze, if you can't explain what the premise and story is in one sentence, you're already going too deep, and you're going to lose your guests. So I think that was kind of the problem the first year with Dead of Winter.
Yeah, They were riffing on Frozen, which had just come out, and damn it, the idea was good. The idea was solid. It's just there was something missing with the way the talent was handling things. You know, there were some set pieces that were jaw-dropping. They were gorgeous. The pacing was fine. It just something just didn't gel, and it might have been that it was just a concept.
Yeah.
You know, and again, all due respect to everybody involved. So if anybody has any of the mazes they weren't too fond of, let us know in the comments. Please.
Yep.
Okay, so number 4, and we're gonna leave it at. After this, we're gonna skip over to the mazes we love.
So we just did number 4. You mean number 3?
No. We did for instance, my list was Virus Z with
Yep.
Carrie, The
Yep.
Body, and Dead of Winter.
Oh, I haven't gone yet. Oh, have another
So
drink, Rick.
yeah,
So we're doing number 3.
yeah. So you're doing your number 3.
My number 3, so it follows the same vein, the same problem that you had with Virus Z. One of my favorite mazes, and it was, in my opinion, a groundbreaking maze at Knott Scary Farm, was Nightmares back in the 90s. And it was a stunningly beautiful maze. It had cutting edge effects and really great scares. And the design was fantastic for this thing. And then in 1999, it became Elvira's Nightmares. And there you go. The rest is history. It was just kind of shot to hell, and the aesthetic changed. And suddenly there's this Elvira presence in this maze that had nothing to do with Elvira at all, ever.
Now, see, I didn't get to go through it. Did it
Yeah.
get campy?
So it was not campy, but it was just suddenly like, well, why is this maze that is like one of the best mazes ever at that point at Scary Farm? Suddenly it's a commercial for Elvira just because it's below the Good Time Theater. So
It was in the bumper cars.
Yeah, it was in the bumper cars. And so I had a major problem with that. And I was biased because, Nightmares was one of my favorite mazes. I was certainly, I was a fan of the Elvira show. I mean, most people that grew up going to Knott Scary Farm, you have to respect that, and people watch the Elvira show. But for me, it was just like, man, it was the first time that something that I really loved at Scary Farm just had this square peg, just like intrusion of an IP, just to have an IP jammed into this maze. So don't know what went on there with Cassandra Peterson and the marketing team and the contract. I have no idea what was going on that year, but to me that was a huge misstep.
Well, there's, yeah. I mean, at least we got her for a few more good shows that were a hell of a lot of fun. So I'm gonna share my number 4. Well, I guess this would be my number 2. Yes, Ian.
So we're doing this, and we're not jumping to the best list.
Oh, we are. We're saving the worst one.
Okay, so we're doing number 4. Okay, I have another drink.
So
Go ahead.
yes, Ian, numbers. Yes, they're very hard. But my my number 2 least favorite maze of all time at Knott Scary Farm is Endgames, Warriors of the Apocalypse.
Wow. Okay. Rough, Norm.
Huh?
Rough. That's rough, dude.
It's not rough at all.
Tell me what you didn't like.
It wasn't scary.
Okay.
And it was an interesting idea, but I think the worst to me, the thing that the one year that I really didn't like was when they moved it to the smaller location backstage.
Okay.
And it was just kind of like, I don't know, it lost what it had before. And yes, it was still pretty creative, but it was just, there was something missing. And I was not scared. Listen, us being scared is very difficult, but it wasn't something that got me.
Right.
It wasn't something I connected with.
Yeah.
So that was just my number 2 least favorite maze of all time.
Really, you know what I did like about that, and we would be remiss not to say that was one of Brooke Walter's mazes. One of the things that I really liked about the way that was designed was that you could see through so many of the scenes. You could see like through different rooms, so it was a very complex layering of switchback rooms and corridors where you could see like different scenes.
And
throughout the maze.
agree with
I thought
you
that
there.
was really cool.
I'll agree with you there. And she even did that in Voodoo,
Yeah.
which was really cool when you got out into the swamp and you could see the full expanse.
Yeah.
Super cool idea.
And I believe also one of the cutting edge things was, I think they maybe had a problem with it. Oh hell, it's been so long. I don't know whether it was the first year or whatever. But the idea was they broadcast every night from Knott Scary Farm, and you could log in to the Scary Farm website.
Yes, you could.
And you could
there
watch
was like a
guests going through Endgames, which I thought was pretty damn cool back at the time.
Super cool idea.
So I do have to give it props for that too.
there were some great innovations in it, but at the end of the day, to me, I was just kind of like, I'm
Yeah.
not involved.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get
So,
it.
what is your second least favorite?
Okay, so this is going also 1999, and it was Bigfoot's Revenge. And so
Okay.
Bigfoot's Revenge was billed as a maze, and it really was just walking through the darkened queue of what was then Bigfoot Rapids. Now it's the Calico Rapids. But it was walking through the queue area of this attraction, and there were sound effects, and I don't know if there were maybe one or two people in ghillie suits jumping out. I don't even remember that. But I know at the end you finally encounter Bigfoot. And again, it was funny. It was like this little tiny thing that looked like a hairy turd with giant feet. And it was like, what the hell is this? I waited forever to come into this maze. You traipse me back and forth up an mostly uphill queue, and this is the payoff at the end. And then you didn't even go on the ride. I mean, that was it. So that was just a super huge forehead slapping moment for me. And Bigfoot's Revenge. He got his revenge because we all felt like we had been punched in the nuts when we, finally saw that and was like, what? So there you go.
Well, okay. So I'm thinking, should we share what we felt were the worst, and then move to best?
We can, or we can also, you know what I also did, because again, impossible to do 5. I did do an honorable mention. We can talk about you want to do that?
Yeah, give us an honorable mention.
Do you have any? I've only got one for the bad ones. I got a lot for the good ones.
I could list a few. I could list a few.
All right, well then do it off the top of your head, and then I'll do my honorable mention.
The Fear. When they turned all the lights off in Kingdom of the Dinosaurs and called it scary. That was kind of weird. That was one that popped up. But again, we were doing mazes, so I was like, so I left that out. And then another one was when they did Evil Dead on the log ride. That was kind of odd. So
another tie-in that was just kind of like, this isn't really Knott's thing to do this. So,
which it could be, but it felt a little like rushed. So.
Yeah, I mean there have been really decent tie-ins at Knott's, and I think the most decent of all was The Grudge. That maze was really, really good, and everybody thought it was going to be horrible. And it was really good. So it has happened in history. Typically not a haunt thing, though.
Okay, so what's your honorable mentions for?
So my honorable mention is, and it's not really a maze, but it was an experience. It was in 2001. It was Curse of the Spider Woods.
Okay.
Curse of the Spider Woods was billed as the most scary freaking thing that had ever been brought to Knott's Scary Farm. And there was a lot of hype about it, and there was a lot of promotion about it, because at the time, Jack Falfas, who was the man in charge at Knott's, it was his idea, and he really, really wanted this to be done. And basically, you waited forever in a switchback queue area, because it was more of a show than a maze. So you only took a handful of people at a time. You went into a dark room. You listened to this story about how kids went into the woods and disappeared, and strange sounds came from. And the lights went out. Everything starts rumbling, and you feel spider webs going over your face and over your head and everything. And then the lights pop up, and there's people in really bad spider costumes all around you, going, in your face or whatever. And then that's it. Get out. It was a really quick experience. It was a really bad experience. Sorry, Jack. I loved Jack Falfas. I was a Jack fan, and Jack was very, very good to me and very good to TPA for years. But god damn, that was just such a weird misfire it had to be an honorable mention.
Okay, well, let's talk about, I guess, our least favorite.
Oh, are we going to do that?
Let's just go ahead and do that.
All right, go for it.
Well, yeah. My least favorite was Beowulf.
I stole your thunder, baby. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't steal my thunder. In fact, you emphasized it. It was just... It was a film that had not come out yet.
Yeah.
And while it was gorgeous, there were no scares whatsoever.
Right.
None. The film on its own was meh, but it did nothing for Haunt. It was just kind of a tumor of a maze. I mean, it just kind of sat there.
Yeah.
So it just was not.
Yeah. I think what it did for Haunt was probably on the back end bring a lot of money into the Knott's coffers.
You know what? And if
from
that
the
had to
studio.
happen, I get it. But
Yeah.
it was probably the worst maze to me. It was just a real waste of space when you have so many creative geniuses working there that can terrify. So
Yep. No, I get it, and that's totally legit.
what is one of your least favorite of all time?
So this very well could be I have a hard time narrowing things down to like a number one, but this definitely could be like really it, because there was a lot of just yuck feeling that went on with this. So one of the greatest mazes of all times, and we'll get into that later, of course, is Dominion of the Dead, and that was the introduction of vampires into Scary Farm, and the way that had been done was so classy and just damn good for such a long time that vampires became like an absolute core of Scary Farm. And they moved it. So they were building the boardwalk, getting ready to build the boardwalk. They destroyed Whirlpool, which is the building that Dominion of the Dead was in, and they moved it to Camp Snoopy as kind of a last minute decision. And it had no budget at all. So at the very last minute, and this was in 2000, at the very last minute, they said, well, just take whatever props you can find and just kind of like make something work. And it was horrible. It was horrible going from one of the greatest maze experiences ever at Scary Farm to just this shitty excuse of a maze, just a walkthrough that you could just tell the long time, like the veteran vamps that were working it, you could tell everybody was just kind of like so sad and just like so depressed, like what happened to our legacy here. It made me very like angry as a fan. I was like, how is this even possible that you pooched it this bad, you know? And so that is easily my number one of all time, I think, at Not Scary Farm, Gothic Graveyard. It was a one and done because they knew how bad it sucked. It was a one and done, and that was in 2000.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen. We focused enough. And Rick was like, Norm, we're going to go way long on this. And I was like, no, we'll keep it short.
Oh, yeah, no.
We're going long.
We're going long.
So let's talk about the good, because there's far more good than there is awful. And again, everybody, if you're watching us, please comment and talk to us about some of these mazes that we love. Okay, so my number 5 for best maze at Not Scary Farm of all time was Trapped Year 3.
All right.
That was 2015, yeah?
Sure.
And I found that to be kind of the culmination of all of the work that they had put into kind of figuring out how to make the upcharge concept work.
Yeah.
And each one of the scenes was bizarre and strange and weird. And I had a great time going through it. Every single time I went through it, I had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, Trapped 3 was one of the top 5.
Got it. Yeah. No, I hear you. And what I will say before I start my list is that, again, really until I get to like the top 2 or whatever, not really in any particular order. And when I say a maze that is there for like multiple years, what I did was I just chose like its starting year, and went, because most mazes at Knott's, with the exception of things like Trapped, most things at Knott's kind of stay the same during their run. There was a period of about 10 years ago where they were really kind of into like giving different designers different mazes to touch and tweak, but that's kind of, they kind of like stay the course over time. So if I say that it's, whatever, then it's for the whole run. So let's see. My number 5 would be one of the first 3D mazes at Knott's, and if it wasn't it was one of the early ones, but it certainly was the most elaborate. It was 2001. It was Malice and Wonderland. And that maze was beyond ridiculous with the story, the storyboarding and art direction, and just the overall look and feel, and the soundtrack of the maze. And I really am not a fan of 3D mazes. I will typically take the glasses and walk through and put them up and look at things and then put it down because I feel like I'm missing something when I'm wearing the 3D glasses in a maze. So I'll look and, okay, I get it. It's kind of a one-trick pony. But the color and just the sense of design in that, I believe that was Todd Fox, and it might have been somebody else. I'm going to mess that up. But the Malice was fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't get to go through that when I went through
Wonderful
Fairy Tale,
maze.
and so my fourth favorite maze of all time at Not Scary Farm is Paranormal Ink.
Nice.
And that even includes the revamp with the new ending, which totally just turned everything on its head.
Yep, I love the new ending.
Love it.
Yeah.
That was John Cook's first really big debut, I guess you'd say. And he built in a show scene with a great scare, multiple paths, and then a crazy, bizarre ending originally that was very quiet and unsettling.
Yeah.
Remarkable. So that was my number 4.
What John did was he broke a Scary Farm and just general maze in general rule, whereas you just don't put a show scene in the beginning of the maze, or really anywhere in the maze, because it backs it all up. But God, if you put a show scene at the beginning of it, you just add so much longer to an already long wait time outside. And I remember when they were creating Paranormal Ink, I said to John, I said, dude, you're going to kill this line with this pre-show thing. He goes, no, you got to trust me on this. You got to trust me. And he was very mum about it. And, finally I was just busting his balls so much. He was like, dude, it takes 80 people or, whatever he said, 50 people or whatever at the beginning. And what they did was there is a pre-show moment, and then it breaks off and guests go in 2 separate directions. So there's actually an A side, B side, and they go, and then shortly thereafter they meet back up for the rest of the maze.
Right.
But it was pretty damn genius that you could take so many people in at a time and then make up for that lost time by sending them down different paths. I thought that was really, really cool. So absolutely props to John, the team, and everybody involved with Paranormal Ink. That
and it also
deserves
gave it
to be on the list.
Repeatability, because you're like, which side did you go on?
Yeah.
So, if
you watch the TPA video on the TPA channel, the way that I used to edit that is both sides are edited in to the video flow through.
Oh,
so
like
you get to see both A, B side,
Did you do a split screen or?
No, I just added one after the other.
Cool. Okay, so my number 3 favorite maze of all time that I personally experienced was Revenge of the Dead. And that.
Oh wait, did we do mine? My number 4?
Oh shit! Did I mess up?
No, that's okay because then I'll go twice. Okay, Revenge of the Dead, go. I got all sorts of reasons why that's a great one.
Talk about your number 4.
No, you can't. You already said it.
Okay, Revenge of the Dead was my number 3, and it was just this gigantic,
freaking huge,
massive maze in Gasoline Alley.
Yep.
That covered the realm of the dead, and it was something else. It felt like kept going.
That must have been like at least a 15 to 20 minute walk through.
Easily.
And if you got backed up like it always did, and there was always like this weird like sewer section where you would have to like bend down and your face was like right in the ass of the person in front of you, and it was hotter than hell. Not in the ass, but it was hotter than hell because everybody was in this little tunnel, and it would come to like this standstill, and you'd stand there forever in this section every year.
The talent was so good in that. Like, I remember being up on the platform, the loading platform for Soapbox Racers, and looking down into Revenge of the Dead.
Yeah.
And when there was a lull, one of the talent looked up and was like, come down here, you know? And it was just like, oh God, no. It was great.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great, and I love that. Absolutely.
Okay, so give me your number 4 and your number 3.
So my number 4, and this does easily pertain to the first year, just because it was such a throughout the years for me as a fan, and then covering Haunt so intensely as I did. There were always these just what the hell moments where you would just see something that was like, I mean, you've been going since the early 80s, you've seen all the different mazes, you've seen the gags, it's kind of, but once in a while these things come along where you're like, holy shit, it's amazing. And for me, one of those big moments was in 2003, coming around the corner and on the Stagecoach lawn, seeing the facade of the Mangler Asylum for the very first time. And seeing this, it was I think probably the first time that a Knott's Maze really had a full-blown facade built for it.
Yeah.
And going into the asylum, that was a Daniel Miller maze. Uh-huh. It was so dark and just heavy, right? It was mazes, they equate to like horror movies where it's scary, oh, that's something funny, scary, type of thing. It was just oppressive and heavy and just ugly all the way through it. And I remember coming out of the maze just thinking, holy shit, that is a brand new chapter in Not Scary Farm mazes right
But you see, Daniel's mazes do that. Yeah. They make you feel icky.
Well, he's an icky, twisted bastard. And that's why we love him.
And that's why
we love Daniel.
Yes. But, that's what's so much fun about it. Okay, so number 3. What was your number 3?
Number 3 was also a groundbreaking maze in that it was really elaborate.
Okay. And
really freaking long. And the talent was fantastic. And that was in, oh shit, I didn't put the year. Bad me. Bad me. But it was 13 Axe Murder Manor.
Yes.
And that was out behind the Mystery Lodge in
and
the
that was
Q
a brook
area
maze,
back
right?
there. I'm sorry?
That was a brook maze? Was it a Todd Fox brook maze? Or
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But it was very elaborate. More elaborate than most mazes up to that point.
Yes.
And it was super, super long. And it just hit everything. It hit everything on all cylinders. And it was just really the epitome of a perfect maze. And it was fantastic. And I love it. I love 13X.
I was able to go through it on its last year, and I really enjoyed it. Damn good maze.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Now we're down to our top 2. Our top two favorite mazes of all time at Not Scary Farm.
Until we do honorable mentions first, and then that's a whole other 45 minutes.
We are going to have to do another much longer show about our favorite
About everything?
Things. About
all of it?
All of it, everything.
All of it.
And Jason, yes, best music ever, indeed. Theme Park Duo, hands down. Curse the Calico is a tough contender too. I totally agree with you. Everybody, talk to us about your absolute favorite mazes of all time at Not Scary Farm. We're only covering Not Scary Farm tonight. So, hey, Peter. So, okay, let's go with number 2. So, here's my. You want to see my number 2?
I do.
Okay. Times. Everybody drink. Okay, so my number 2 maze of. Hey, Jason Warner saying, long time no see, Rick.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
Okay, so my second favorite of all time.
That's a haunt vet right there.
Yep. Of all time it ran from 1989 to 1992. And that would be Uncle Ernie's Madhouse.
Wow, the clowns.
I'm terrified of clowns.
Okay.
And Poltergeist started it.
Wow. Okay.
This maze sealed it. I've never felt that heightened sense of hysteria and just like terror than I have in Uncle Ernie's Madhouse, and I loved it.
Nice.
And it was what Haunt was for, was just screaming it all out and just confronting what just absolutely disturbed the living hell out of me. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That was my number 2 best maze of all time.
And I think, and I could be wrong because God knows that happens. I think that I think that was the first introduction of clowns to Not Scary Farm.
Yes, it was.
And it was probably the first maze that ever used Danny Elfman music in the soundtrack.
Did
and
it?
they used Face Like a Frog was part of
you
that
know what?
soundtrack.
You're right, from Forbidden Zone.
Yes.
Now
so
I remember.
I'm thinking
You're
those
right.
were 2 firsts for Not Scary Farm.
So, well, there you go.
I do remember Uncle Ernie's Madhouse.
Yeah, that one got me. That one got me bad. And that was in the old Snoopy's, what'd they call it? Snoopy's Clubhouse? Clubhouse Snoopy? What?
It was in that side of the park. That's all I remember really of it.
It was the little fun house thing that you could walk through, but anyway.
Yep.
So, okay, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is all in black and white, baby. 1995, Haunt was flipped on its head with the original Dominion of the Dead.
Very nice.
To me, that was just the first time really that I walked through a maze and I was so blown away. Number 1, it was long. It was a really long experience. There weren't as many jump scares as it was just this dark, gothic, romantic experience. The music was unbelievable in Dominion of the Dead. And it just was the set design. Everything was done in black and white. And where you would see blood, then it would be red. And that was just so shocking, the contrast of everything. Even the monsters in there, they had black and white makeup on. And it was, oh my God, it was the best thing ever. And it was, forever, the group Dead Can Dance, the host of Seraphim, that became synonymous with, that is like the Jaws theme of Not Scary Farm.
Well, yeah,
if you put on the host of Seraphim by Dead Can Dance, do it on Spotify, kids, tonight.
It'll make you feel this wonderful.
That is the Haunt. That is Not Scary Farm. That is the theme song for Not Scary Farm, in my opinion.
Jason is, yes, Dominion of the Dead, or DOD. I'm assuming that's Dominion.
Yep. And it was also the birthplace of, at least for me, the first maze talent that kind of stuck out, because people used to, back in the day, people would start in the mazes and kind of work their way onto streets, and then when they made it onto streets, then it was showtime, and they had their own character that they did every year or whatever. Dominion of the Dead was the vampire mazes is where you would find Sandy, and she was the queen of the vampires, and she did it year in, year out, and unfortunately she's no longer with us, and we miss her all the time. She was the vampire maze, right? Everybody those were her children, but it was everybody went through the maze. They brought her flowers, they brought her gifts every year, they brought her stuffed animals, and it was like going to see a celebrity when you went into Dominion of the Dead, and then the subsequent mazes after that were vampire. So it was the first maze where you had a standout talent like that from year to year. And it just really took the mazes in general. It was one of those moments where it just took everything to the next level at Not Scary Farm.
And Jason is saying that he was Vamp King in there.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah.
Props to you, Jason. And thank you for tuning in and being a part of this.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, yes, let's take a final drink.
The final drink.
And
okay.
we will get to our number 1.
Are we gonna run through some honorable mentions before the number 1?
You know what? I guess we should, huh?
Yep.
All right, hold up. Okay. Honorable mentions.
Yeah.
One of my particular favorites, two of my particular favorites were Voodoo.
Okay. Yep.
The first year.
Yep.
Then Trick or Treat.
Yep.
Trick or Treat is gorgeous, but far too short.
Yep.
Or it was. And then, Daniel came in with Waxworks, and that was great.
Yep.
Oh, God. There are, so many. Then
I know,
Daniel's
a million,
Black
right?
Magic. There was Delirium. Delirium
million
was
of them.
just a nasty, icky thing.
Yep.
Oh man. I mean, those were some of the things that stick out in my mind. What about you?
Yep. Absolutely. So, Trapped, right? It debuted in 2012. It was the first time it was an upcharge maze at Knott's. It was the first you got to sign a waiver. This is a rated R maze ever at Knott's.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it broke boundaries at Knott's, and it just kind of took a maze to a new level at Knott's. It was not the first one at the theme park to do that. Hallow Scream and Busch Gardens did that before there was Trapped.
Yes.
But Trapped was the first for Knott's, and it was great. And each of the years that they executed it, it was so much fun, and it was really, really, really well done. So that, and of course, I mean, dude, we could do an entire episode just talking about each one of these mazes, right? So the Dark. Okay, so you didn't like it, right? I thought the Dark. So you didn't like the Fear, which is what the Dark became.
Oh, the Fear. That's right. Sorry.
Right. So the Dark was the first time that they turned in 1988. They turned out the lights in Kingdom of the Dinosaurs, and they sent you through. But it had its own soundtrack, and the idea was there was a killer that lived in this dark ride, and so you were going through the dark ride. So they didn't try to hide the fact that it was a dinosaur dark ride. They had like shadows, they had special effects, they had a soundtrack, and they had people dressed in all black that were right off the track. And as you would go by, they'd reach in and they would like touch a feather over your face or whatever, right? And like freak you out in the darkness. And so when it did start, it was really good. And so it made my honorable mention list, but barely, because it wasn't a maze, it was a ride, but they did put a haunt overlay on it. We talked about Nightmares in 1993. Blew my socks off, man. The visuals, again, the soundtrack, Miranda Sex Garden, Cover My Face. That is another just an amazing haunt song. Glenn Danzig, he did the soundtrack was used for that. There was some Peter Gabriel, Last Temptation of Christ, as that soundtrack. It was fantastic. And so Nightmares is right up there. God, Lair of the Vampire. The Vampire started in 1994 at Knott's Scary Farm, and it was in Studio K. And Lair of the Vampire was show-based, scene-based. So you went from scene to scene in this really gothic, very elaborate kind of like play that they just did over and over and over again. And that was the introduction of vampires into Knott's. Had an incredibly long queue. And I know because the one and only year that I worked Knott's Scary Farm, I was in charge of the folks that do the line control. And that was one of the first queues that really was a challenge because it got so packed and it was really such a long wait. And I was like, what in the hell are these people doing in there? You know? And then when I went through, I was like, oh, okay, get it. And that was controversial maze. There was a scene in Lair of the Vampire where they actually ate someone's baby. There was a sacrificial baby that was eaten in this thing, and people like lost their shit at Knott's, and they had to clip that scene out of the maze. So there you go, Lair of the Vampire. 2007, The Doll Factory. You know, Brooke Walters knocked it out of the park, and it was again one of those holy shit moments going through and seeing, you know, the Doll Factory was just so dark. It was dark and had this creepy sexual undercurrent and just this whole bondage thing going on. It was just a gross, dark maze, and you came out of it going, ugh, what the hell was that? And so that was a really, really good thing. Again, Brooke Walters, 2009 Terror of London. You know, that was a good one. That came after 13 acts. And again, really, really long maze and really another notch up in the belt of being elaborate. The Terror of London, of course, was the Jack the Ripper story. And god damn it, it was just so good. It was really, really good.
And they even like recreated specific crime scenes in that maze.
Oh, it was very accurate. She did her research and everything was very accurate in the maze. It was fantastic. And I'm blowing through these things here. Dude, my friend David Ortiz in 2009, Dia de los Muertos. blew everyone's mind because it was done so well and the colors were so vibrant and it
Yeah.
paid such a respectful homage to Dia de los Muertos. And they had a scene, they had a cemetery scene that was one of the biggest, just wide open spaces they had ever had in a Knott's maze.
With a bunch of La Lloronas.
It was they had
candles and
the altars were on all it was a cemetery that you walked through. And God, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. It was one of the most haunting and one of the most beautiful scenes ever at Knott's Scary Farm. It was fantastic. This is not a maze, but it has to be mentioned. 2014, John Cook did something that just broke everyone's head. He turned the entire Camp Snoopy into special ops infected.
Yes.
And you waited forever in queue. You were given guns, and you were literally run through all the buildings and through set pieces and chased by zombies and all this shit all throughout Camp Snoopy. So it was unbelievable. The size was ridiculous. The experience was overwhelming in every way. And, for any of us that are heavy, it damn near killed all of us. There was almost a great culling at Knott's Scary Farm where all of us fat Knott's Scary Farm fans didn't make it out that year. So there could 2015 it could have been a bunch of skinny people walking around going, dude, we're all the fat people. So it was one of those things where it was just like, what in the hell did you do? And also, dude, what in the hell did you do? I didn't know whether to be pissed or kiss him. I didn't know. But
why not both?
That was very interesting because it also was detrimental in a way to park circulation.
Yes.
When theme parks are designed, usually lands are put in there and there's a way to circulate people through the park and all that. And to have an entire quadrant, literally, of Knott's Scary Farm taken out was a little weird as far as the people suck and circulation. But, they did it and it worked that year. And in later years, it became just the maze. That you went through. And I actually liked that much better because it was just better condensed, I thought. They could do more.
And it was more flow through. And
It felt more maze-like. It felt a better experience. Just a tighter experience.
We only have 3 minutes left.
Are you really putting me on a time?
I am putting you on a time.
Oh, my God. Yes, I had like 4 more. Anyway.
Oh, my God. Spit it out.
Dude, 4 more. So, for the reasons we talked about and a few more, 2014 Voodoo, right?
Yes.
First Knott's Scary Farm maze to be built on top of a water reservoir, which is, if you've ever worked with water, that is a pain in the ass. That is a design straight from hell to deal with water in an enclosed building like that. So Voodoo, again, for reasons we discussed, Paranormal Ink, 2016. Be remiss not to say Dark Ride, obviously, 2017, right? Dark Ride is one of those mazes where John just knocked it out of the ballpark again, and at the beginning it's great, and you go into scene after scene, and every scene gets bigger and more impressive, and then you get to the end, and it's like the biggest freaking show scene you've seen at Knott's Scary Farm. Unbelievable. I do think when Scary Farm comes back, they have to. So last time there was a scary, I want to say last year, but it wasn't last year, but y'all know what I mean. The last time there was a Scary Farm, at the exit of Dark Ride, they had the shirts up there that said, I shit myself, right? I shit myself. Knott's, you have to sell those shirts. Because everyone that goes to Knott's Scary Farm would buy an I shit myself shirt.
I'd be down. I'd totally buy that.
Who wouldn't buy that shirt from Scary Farm? You have to sell this thing, Knott's. You have to. Obviously, Origins, right? Origins goes without say. Beautiful, unbelievable maze from Ted Doherty and John Cook and the team. Waxworks in 2019 was, I thought, a breakout maze for Daniel. Yeah. He really took his skills to the next level and created something really freaking good.
In that maze, what he did was he took his penchants for ickiness and vaudevillian showmanship and exploring abandoned places. He took all those things he does well, and he packed them together, and he did it great.
Waxworks was beautiful.
Yeah, it was
absolutely beautiful. So those are my runners up. I mean, it goes years, obviously, without say. It goes years. But
And you know what? We could have the same discussion like next week, and things might be different. So, and again, this is not to dismiss the work that was done on the things that we didn't really like.
right.
You know, those were just things.
Come on, dude. You know you like the Stepdad 2 walkthrough.
Yes, I did. So moving on.
Rough.
Okay, I'm going to go with my
Drum
number
roll.
one. Oh, God.
Yep.
I hate this. Okay, right now, well, for the past couple of years, my favorite maze of all time at Not Scary Farm is Origins.
All right.
I can't tell you the last time I've been through a maze that had such a cohesive story,
Yep.
such a well-told story,
Yep.
such a scary one, and such a fleshed out story.
Yep.
You started with the queue, with townspeople. Well, you started in the park with people, coming after the Green Witch. Then you started in the queue with people telling you, we're going to get Sarah Marshall. Then you showed up at her trial. Then you went through the town where things were going crazy. There were rain effects. There were facades. There was then we went to her lair. Then we went to her cursing us and then being sent off into the green unknown. I just, with regards theming, story, and overall execution, to me, that was the very best thing that's shown up at Knott's thus far.
Nice. And you are in the, I'm not going to say the 1%, but you are in the niche crowd that are like the hardcore Scary Farm and Knott's fans, right? I would say that the majority of people on any given night at Knott's Scary Farm are probably casual visitors of Knott's.
Sure,
they are probably looking for a great night. They go with their friends or their girlfriends every year to Knott's Scary Farm. They know it's a good time. It's a good night out. But there are a certain group of fans that Ted and John completely catered to in this regard and totally wrote like the perfect love letter. Perfect love letter.
They catered to everybody. They catered to the casual visitor who was just in it for the scares. They catered to the long-time fans, not just of Haunt,
the oldest,
but of Knott's.
Yep.
They catered to everybody. They blended
Yes.
all the lore, all of the story.
Yep.
As rich as anything Disney could put out. And it was fun.
Yeah.
And it was scary, and it was a full story and an experience.
Beautiful.
And there's always a special place in my heart for Paranormal Ink, but Origins, damn it, that's, I guess, my favorite maze.
Well, it pushed your buttons. And it pushed
certainly
your buttons,
did.
And it was designed to push, specifically, to push your buttons as a hardcore fan.
Well, there was no Hugh Jackman, so keep going.
It really was. No one else except the hardest of the hardcore are going to go through there and realize that Ted put the Seymour costume in there. Like, no one's going to know that. And I would say that most people going through there, most people don't even know what the hell a catawampus is. Even though they've walked by it a million times, most people don't know what the catawampus is. So it was a direct love letter right into our hearts. And I think that's why it stuck so well and so hard. I really do.
Yeah, it was great. Now, what is your number one?
Number one, well, so for years and years and years, and I thought for perpetuity, I thought it was going to be Dominion of the Dead. And then I went into Trick or Treat. And Trick or Treat in its first year blew my mind, man. It was everything. It was everything that we love about Halloween and more. It was the Knott's version of nostalgic Halloween. It was the haunted house with the Green Witch
ringing the doorbell.
Dude, and it was the first time that Knott's Scary Farm had done a Halloween maze. And it was beautiful, man. Now, was it the same? Was it better in later years? That's debatable. But dude, that first year going through Trick or Treat, I fell in love, man. I fell in love with this maze. I remember texting Brooke and just saying, well, this is my favorite maze of all time. And I'm usually pretty good about not picking sides and being so. But dude, in my opinion, Trick or Treat is the greatest maze that we've ever had at Knott's Scary Farm. I love. That's my favorite. I love it because it stood for years. It stood the test of time. It wasn't a one-trick pony, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but like, so coming from the same designer, after you went through the doll factory and the initial shock of what the hell was that wore off, it was like, oh yeah, it's the doll factory. Whereas Trick or Treat, you could just go through it. Every time you went through Trick or Treat, you just felt more and more in love with the aesthetics of it, with the characters.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the addition of the attic scene at the end, and
sure, with the cauldron, it was fantastic.
Yes.
And hello, Sheet Ghost, best thing ever. We love the Sheet Ghost, right?
Yeah, one of the best.
So yeah. The first year had that cool little party scene at the end that was kind of creepy and unsettling. And again, though, it was a show moment, and it really backed the maze up. Whenever the witch would do her spiel and come out. But dude, what a great maze. So yes, there are other mazes that absolutely deserve that crown. But really, in my heart of hearts, when I think about it, I don't have to think very long. And like, I remember walking out going, oh my God, I feel like I'm cheating on Dominion of the Dead because I really, really love this more.
Well, that's how I felt after Origins. I was like, I really love Paranormal.
Yeah. There it is. That is that's the long and the short of it.
I should say, short, mainly because we're both pretty short. But I mean, we could have gone on forever about some of the mazes that we absolutely love.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is like I said, we could do an hour on any of these.
Man, I should have listened to you.
See?
Well, here we are at the end of our broadcast, and we've named what we feel are our favorite mazes.
Yep.
And our least favorite mazes. And Jason Warner is like, he doesn't know who I am, is he? Yes, heckler. I know your face. I know who you are. And
no, you hear the voice. You know the voice before you ever see the face.
Yes. So yes, I do know. But
Jason, I hope you are well and safe, my brother.
Yes. And please, everybody, if you enjoyed this little gargantuan broadcast, then please like and subscribe. If you want to join the team, I will put the link in the comments. But yeah, here we are. Let's really hope that we can be able to get back into the fog this September, and
I think we will.
Oh God,
I think we will.
I really want this.
I think we will.
Okay, well, then I guess that's it. And everyone, have an amazing night, and we'll see you in the fog.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.